Welcome to Latte with a Lawyer, a podcast dedicated to bringing you the stories of some of America's most successful lawyers, figuring out what makes them tick, how they creatively solve problems, and how others, aspiring to be them, can follow in their footsteps. Here's your host, Jacob Wells.
All right. Welcome to Latte with a Lawyer. I'm your host, Jacob Wells, and I'm so excited today because we have a great guest. We're going to dive into the marketing side of things with Harlan Schillinger. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And thanks so much for spending some of your time with us today. Before we get into the episode, give us just a bit of an overview of who you are.
Well, I usually go by the line, I'm nobody, but all my friends are famous. And that kind of breaks the ice. But I've been in the advertising world since 1975. In 1977, I recognized my partners and I had a small agency that spoke to high-end retail commercials. We recognized the legal category coming about, and by accident jumped into it. And so throughout the years, I've been very active in the agency world, put a lot of people on television, merged my business with a lawyer in Denver back in '84 to formulate Network Affiliates, which was it's still a great agency, still affiliated with it. And 5 years ago, I retired from Network. I'm not sure what retirement means. I think I quit and moved on to something else.
Yeah.
But I'm in the consulting arena with several clients regarding strategy. So I think I've seen most of it. I would never say I've seen all of it because that's a pretty far reach. One of my more passionate endeavors is intake and conversion. And along with two other partners, we created a product called Lead Docket. And last year, we merged that with Filevine. Personally, I'm very proud of it. And there's almost 500 clients using it. And
so what do those products do exactly?
It's an intake and conversion measuring tool and a CRM. It collects everything about your advertising, where it's being spent. It helps manage the client experience in the sale. Most importantly, it allows you to understand exactly where you are, increase your business by increasing your conversions.
Amazing. Well, you have a very long-lasting career, and you've dealt with every aspect of the industry. So I want to take it all the way back to the Irish Spring days. So walk me through how you got interested in marketing, the early days, what it was like back then.
Well, I met my neighbor up in Lakeville, Connecticut, who happened to be a gentleman named Bill Meiskens, was the executive creative director of J. Walter Thompson. And we rode down to New York together, about a 150-mile ride every Monday and Thursday. And after about 3 weeks, Bill came to me and said, listen, I'd like to teach you the television business. Would you be interested? I was 25 years old. I was on my first real job, I would say. We've been working since we're 12 years old. And so I don't want to say it's a real job. But I was, schlepping down to the city and, I was doing pretty well, actually. And I said, sure, why not? It sounded interesting. And he introduced me to the Madison Brothers film company and sucked me right into the business. I started moving sandbags, and then I started moving whatever else they asked me to move. But I learned the business. You mentioned Irish Spring Soap. We shot all those commercials up in Lakeville, Connecticut. Noxema, take it off, take it all off, De Beers. And that was my introduction to, television production and advertising.
Great. And from there, how did you transition into the legal side of things? I know that you saw there was like an untapped market, right?
The truth of it is that we recognized it as a category and produced a series of television commercials. Every once in a while, I could look back at those spots, and with the exception of the wardrobes that people are wearing, I could run those commercials today.
That's
really.
amazing.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, we it was so I I stumbled into it,
Hmm.
made something of it. Uh, there was one gentleman that was on television that was marketing his firms, Len Jacoby, and Len, within a few years, became a client of mine, and is still a very dear friend. And that's how I really started. I think great things happen when you just take a shot at it.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing that the commercials are that timeless. I think that's something that a lot of people on the production side of things really try to aim for, is to have their content not be dated. That's pretty remarkable. How are you able to do that?
Well, the first thing that we did is, you understand the legal category and what was happening. For the very first time, people had access to the courtroom, uh, and they had an opportunity to hire a lawyer through advertising,
Hmm.
finding out who they can work with. And so it's like a floodgate that opened up. And when you started advertising back in we're going back, it got rolling around 1980, 1981. It was kind of interesting. You saw a legal commercial on TV, and you didn't realize that, number one, you could hire a lawyer. Number two, it's on contingency, so it costs you nothing to hire a lawyer. And number three, you didn't have to get a recommendation from your next door neighbor. You could pick that lawyer really up off the television.
Hmm.
Now that all sounds a little archaic, or how do I really want to do that? But the truth of the matter is, it completely opened up access to the courtroom. My associate, Norton Fricke, a lawyer in Denver, was the second lawyer ever to advertise. And Tom Gerald, from 2020, I believe it was, did an interview with him. And I'll never forget this line. He says, "I'm giving the little guy access to the courtroom." Interesting.
Hmm.
And so it really changed. It changed the legal arena. That is absolutely for sure. And nowadays, a law firm will have a very tough time surviving unless they really advertise, because everybody advertises. Some people advertise, at functions, networking. Other lawyers advertise on television. Obviously, the internet has exploded. But don't kid yourself. Everyone advertises.
So when I think of advertising and the way that it has changed over the years, and I think of like a show like Mad Men, and the way they used to market, let's say, a chair is like, here's the functionality. You need to sit in something. Here's a chair. But nowadays it's like, ooh, you got to get this chair because then it's going to make you like famous. And this is like a lifestyle thing. How has that been the same case with the legal marketing side of things? How has that
You
changed?
know, yes or no. I don't think that the fundamental values of advertising have changed. In advertising, rule number one is, you get what you ask for.
Hmm.
When we produced our first series of commercials, I had a gentleman, an actor at a guardrail, knocking the guardrail and said, "This could be you," going into the guardrail. So we really dissected it. What happens? You have a problem. You've been in an accident, and you need to go somewhere. Those principles haven't changed. What's changed is the hype, the drama.
Hmm.
Uh, but what's interesting is there's about 4,500 lawyers that are advertising on television. I just use that figure. I would say 95% of them all say the same thing, maybe even more. I do
Yeah.
this, I'll get you that, I'll do this. So advertising really hasn't changed. Production values have changed.
Hmm. That's the thing that I wonder about, coming from like the creative side of things, is with the low budget, you can still tell an interesting and compelling story. But when you look at the local law firm, their ad doesn't have that. It's not the production value, but it doesn't have a compelling story, and it seems kind of cheesy. Why is that? That at the low end you can't get good storytelling and something compelling like you can for somebody like
Well,
yourself?
I'm going to answer this in the most personal way. I truly believe that lawyers follow the other guy, the other person. They follow them because, well, he's successful, I should do what he's doing. They're sheep.
Mm.
And we see that all day long. My backbone of advertising, going back from when I first started, and especially today, is to talk to the public the way you would a jury. When you approach a jury, you're approaching them with credibility. You're telling a story. That's the basis of a jury trial, is telling the story and presenting the facts in a most credible way. Now, I don't think you need 2 cents to be able to deliver that message.
Absolutely.
I think you have to have common sense. And when I talk about common sense, I say this to lawyers all the time. Well, my backbone is I want to talk to the public the way I would a jury. Oh, yeah, I understand that. Well, would you really get up in front of a jury and say, I'm going to get my client $5 million and I'll get you all the money today, as much as you can get. You'll never be able to spend what I can get you. Of course, I'm playing with that. But that is the backbone of my approach. Consequently, I aim for much better cases. It costs you about the same to get a low-end case than a high-end case. But going back to, you get what you ask for, and you have to have a technique on what you're asking for, and it's built on credibility, will determine what kind of business comes in your door.
Interesting. I think, like, when you talk about the money side of things, that's an inevitable part of the lawyer's business. And I remember talking to one lawyer in particular, and he's like, that's an inevitable part of my business, but I try to make the client understand that, make the jury understand that, and that's not the main reason. Sure, I'm trying to win you a lot of money, but, like, I'm also a virtuous guy that cares about you. How do you get that across in advertising?
Well, let's back up a minute. If you're in a serious injury, if you're in a wrongful death, do you really think somebody calls up the law firm and says, well, how much money am I going to get for this wrongful death? My father just died and I just want to know how much it's worth. I mean, let's get real. That happens all day long. Lawyers, they're constantly, selling I'll get this for you. But the truth of it be the victim that has a serious accident, and you can't just say, well, we take serious accidents, but I'm not really serious. It's back to the jury trial. You have to build a case. You have to have credibility. And in your advertising, you have to do the same thing. If you consistently ask for money and consistently ask for, give me all the cases. I don't care if you're falling down or you're standing up. I'm paraphrasing and I'm making fun of this, but it's true. That's what you're going to get. I have dear friends in this business that take in, I have one friend that takes in, 15, 1,800 cases a month, but their average case is small. Now, he's doing very, very, very well. But a lot of small cases can make the lawyer money and the law firm very profitable. But doesn't it make sense to go after a big case? And your question is, well, how do you do that? I think you have to prove to the public that you're credible, that you're an expert in what you're asking for. It's like trucking cases. Every lawyer wants a trucking case. Unfortunately, the word big bucks, big trucks, exist. But there's a difference between a lawyer that advertises for a trucking case and a lawyer that is a true trucking lawyer. When you get a trucking case, and I'm using this as an example because it really falls into any other litigation. I mean, you got to know what you're doing. The majority of lawyers that advertise for trucking cases farm it out to a trucking lawyer because they have the resources, the understanding, secure the evidence immediately. When you're in a complex case, you have to have the resources to process the case. The resources is the brains, the experience, the money for experts, and a clear strategic path. Most lawyers that advertise, they're what we call gatherers. So they gather these cases. And the majority of high valued cases, complex cases, are farmed out.
So
to law firms.
This might be an ignorant question, but what makes the trucking case so desirable to lawyers?
When you have a huge truck rolling over a small vehicle, it's usually catastrophic.
Right. That's where my
And
mind went.
so all cases come down to the value of your lifestyle, or what is your value worth.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, it's determined through your earnings, through insurance, uh, and so that's how a case like that is valued.
Hmm. So you talk about like you don't need 2 cents, but you need common sense. So I think that a lot of the high end lawyers are understanding that their law firm isn't just a law firm, it's a business. They have to understand the marketing side of things. Somebody that has the common sense, but maybe not the budget, how do they approach their business intelligently in terms of the marketing?
Well, that's a very good point you make. 12 years ago, Keith Gibbons, myself, Howard Nations, John Romano, we were sitting at Keith's house, Keith Gibbons' house, and we recognized that there isn't an organization that is really focusing on the business of law. And I'll never forget what Howard Nation said. He says, "I may be a great lawyer. I've tried, major cases, but if I wasn't a businessman, I wouldn't be in business today."
Mm,
And there's a lot of phenomenal lawyers that have gone bankrupt because they couldn't manage their business.
wow.
My old friend Mel Belli, is a great example. He died poor because he just didn't manage his business, and it is a
Mm,
business. So you have to look at it as a business,
mm,
and it's the managing. But my advice for any lawyer, whether it's a seasoned lawyer or a new lawyer, is take a look at the ethics, that the oath that you signed, which is your very, very first contract that you signed when you became a lawyer. When you're admitted into your bar, you have to read a paragraph with your right hand up, and it's on a Bible, and with your left. I don't know if it's your right hand or left hand, but one of your hands are on the Bible, and you're making a contract with the state that I will do this, I will do this, I will do this, I will treat my client this way, I'll treat my client that way, I will
mhm.
do this to my client. Now, in 44 years, I have never met a lawyer that read that oath after they signed it, which is absolutely unbelievable to me. But if you follow what you contracted to do, and you gave the service and the attention to your clients, your business down the road will flourish because you're doing what you, number one, said you would do.
Mhm.
And that is a heck of a good roadmap to start with.
Yeah. Got to go
The
back
other
to the
thing,
initial values for sure.
well, you signed a contract to do something.
Mhm.
And there's a reason people don't like lawyers. Well, they don't return phone calls, they're arrogant, you can't get a hold of them. If you completely do the opposite, what position does that put you in?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I will tell you unequivocally, the best case that's going to walk into your office is a referral case. So use common sense.
It seems like a pretty easy thing to do, but I guess a lot of people don't have that, especially the legal business.
It's not easy because lawyers want to follow the next guy because they think
Mm,
he's got more money than they do, and they chase the money and they chase the opportunity. And
mm,
I don't really see anything wrong with doing that if that's what you want to do. I
mm,
can assure you, if you do it and you copy somebody that really does it right or knows how to, run their business, you'll do very well. I have a different philosophy. I put all of my value on the case, on the value of the case, and the integrity of the firm.
mm.
I believe the value of the case is everything. Advertising 101, you get what you ask for.
Right. Do you think that there are a lot of lawyers who are in the business for the wrong reasons, that they don't actually want to be a lawyer, they just see it as a good way to make money?
I've never really met a lawyer that got into the business because they didn't want to be a lawyer. They just wanted to be a
Mm.
ambulance chaser or a businessman.
Yeah.
But what I have seen is a lot of lawyers get into the business and they lose their energy, or they don't
Mm,
like their clients, or they just don't understand the business end of it, and they're
mm,
unhappy.
mm,
You shouldn't be in any business that, number one, isn't driven by passion.
mm.
And in the legal industry, your passion is to help people. That's what you do. If you're a doctor, you don't, get into medicine because of the money. You get into the medicine because you want to save lives. A teacher doesn't sign on to, become a teacher because, well, I'm going to make 30 grand or 50 grand a year, which I think, a teacher is run by passion.
Absolutely.
Any entrepreneur that you know of, gets involved in any kind of a business really because of passion. I mean, can you imagine waking up and doing your job and hating it every day? How long would that last?
Right.
It'd certainly be reflective of your results.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, that's definitely interesting that they start out with the passion, then they lose it. It's pretty unfortunate. But
Every great lawyer that I know, a great lawyer is somebody that's passionate, that wins for their clients, and that believes in the Constitution. They're very passionate about practicing law. We're forced to be businessmen.
So besides for going back to look at what you initially signed up for, to look at the contract, how do you stay passionate and stay driven, and what do you think makes that lawyer not lose what he set out to do initially?
Well, I think practicing law, you have to have a passion for practicing law. Somebody said to my dear friend Michael Berg, and I'll never forget this, "What do you do, Michael, for a living?" And he says, "I go after the bad guys." That's his passion. I hear these kind of things, all the time. My dear friend Michael DeMeo has an interesting philosophy. He runs his practice like Ritz-Carlton because that's his passion. So that's, that's how I see it, and I see it from examples of, of great men and women that that are very passionate and very focused on the client experience. Because that's what it's all about. Everything else will come into place.
Right. And where do you see the future of the business going? I mean, with the
I think,
technology and everything, where do you see it going from here?
well, a lot of things came out of this pandemic. One of the stronger things has come out of it is technology, and people have clamored to technology. Lawyers are trying right now to upgrade their technology, their case management. I sold Lead Docket on March 3rd. Just the week before the pandemic. It turned out that product flew off the shelves because it allowed you to manage your business remotely better than managing it, in person. So technology, I think, is where we're all headed. And that doesn't mean you get into over complicated technology, but I think there's a major change in business, and this opens up an entirely big can of worms. The big operators, the big mills, the big firms, the high volume firms are plateauing. If there's anyone looking at me right now, you have to, from that kind of an operation, ask yourself, is my business growing? Well, moving into another market is growing, but you're maxing out your market. Hypothetically, if you're and this is astronomical, 500 cases a month, to get 600 is going to be a chore, because you're giving up market share to so many other people that are taking their business from you. And so I think that the high volume firms are at a crossroads right now. They're going to have to offer something more than, if I've been, in a wreck, I want a check. Now, I love my friend Glenn Lerner who does that, and he has a phenomenal business. But unless you're in a wreck and you need a check, or one call, that's all. Well, one call, if you can think that calling a lawyer one time and you're going to get your situation. So what they're asking for is they're asking for the business that's coming to them. And by golly, I will tell you, they got a lot of business. I mean, they do very, very well. However, their business isn't growing because the quality of the case is not growing, because they're stuck. And this is my personal opinion. They're stuck. And these are very strong words. I'm going to get backlash from this. Their economics is stuck because that's what they're asking for. Give me all the low end cases in the planet. Now, yes, of course they get some, some sizable cases. You take another lawyer that I'm very close to in another market that converted his business into a trucking firm, and he went from 30 million to 135 million because he's asking for a different valued case with 14 employees. Now, who's more profitable? I mean, it's, you can't knock Walmart, but Walmart has its issues, and it's just not attracting more people.
Do you think it comes down to the marketing? So this guy's saying, if you're in a wreck and you want to check, that's attracting a certain level of clientele, right? But if he rebrands, maybe he can grow, right? Does that come down to the marketing, you think?
Well, first of all, that line is brilliant, and the gentleman that runs his practice is brilliant. He really is. I admire him. What I'm saying to you is that you get what you ask for. To take a brand and add much more value to it is giving people that know you more of a reason to do business with you. And that's the path that I'm suggesting. You can't be known for one thing. If you are known for one thing, that's what you're going to get. To get a high valued case, you have to have credibility.
Right. So do you have an example of a way that you help somebody with what we were talking about just now?
Well, I think telling a story, through social media, through certain kinds of television commercials. Now, my friends that do hype advertising, say it's boring, it's this and that, but I don't really buy into that. You take a firm like a company like Crisp, hypothetically, Crisp Video, Crisp whatever his repertoire is at this moment.
Yeah.
Their storytelling is very compelling. When you see a story that they lay out for a lawyer, and hypothetically you're asking for a trucking case, and they dissect a trucking case, or they talk more intelligently about what's involved in it, and you have testimonials from people that say, listen, I didn't call this lawyer because I wanted all the money. I called this one because my life was, in transition. I want the quality of life back. So telling the story, I think, is a great way. Going back to standing in the courtroom, how do you get $5 million for a case? How do you get that? You ask for it, but you got to have certain credibility and facts to present to earn that case. And advertising is the same way.
What I love
I'm rather stuck with testimonials, and I'm not talking about testimonials that my lawyer got me $12 million, or I now drive a Lincoln Continental, if they even make that car anymore. It's about the quality of life. My lawyer got me back on track so that I can breathe, so that I can have a house with a ramp. High valued cases are determined. People come to lawyers with high valued cases because they want their quality of life back as much as possible.
Right. It helps you visualize it. It's really telling a story of what that actually is doing tangibly to that person.
Well, what do you do to convince your children to do something? Very often we sit down, and instead of yelling them or putting them in the corner, which I've done many times, you sit and you explain to them what the options are. I'm a huge believer of telling stories, testimonials. There's a lot more credibility when somebody else talks about you than when you talk about yourself. My partner, Patty, when I wake up every morning, and this is the God's honest truth, she says to me, Harlan, today I want you to be interested, not interesting.
I love that. That's one of my favorite sayings. I live my life by that quote. You've got so many good quotes from over the years. That's what I love about talking to you. You just got like all these good one-liners that help you remember what it is that we're talking about here. Such good wisdom.
Well, I'm a believer of analogies.
Yeah.
And, if I'm going to try to explain to you about, this cup or whatever it is, and I can use an analogy, that you immediately grasp, that's truthful. How far down the road did I get? And how quickly did I get down the road? Or how vividly did I make this to you? How, this is one of the most important things in advertising is make it easy for people to do business with you.
Mm-hmm.
Make it easy to understand what you're saying. Less is more.
Absolutely. Well,
so that's where I come up with all these, I would say these gems, and I didn't make up any of them.
Right. Well, amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being on the show. This has been Jacob Wells for Latte with Lawyers. I want to thank Harlan Schillinger for joining us today. It was such an honor to talk with you, and really learned a lot. And got to thank our sponsor, EmotionTrac, without a K, that uses artificial intelligence and mobile app audiences to economically and quickly gather focus group research and data for trials and mediations. So thanks so much.
Let me give you a plug there, because I met met you guys, at National Tri Lawyers. I am really dissecting what you're doing in the advertising world, because it absolutely applies to marketing and focus groups in the same manner that it applies to your focus groups for jury, selection and, jury content, trial content. And I just am amazed at what you guys are doing. And I really mean that. This is a plug, but it's just from the heart.
Thank you. And also, I want to give you a chance to tell everybody how, if they're interested in what you had to say, how do they get connected with you? What's the best way to contact you or find out more?
Well, I don't really solicit business. I have a private consulting business, but I do have a little website that my publicist insisted that we put together. It's harlanschillinger.com. I do a lot of podcasts because I'm asked to do. I think I did, close to 30, 35 during the pandemic. They called on, the industry called on the gray hairs, and, we've gone through things. But you can find me at harlanschillinger.com.
All right. Amazing. Thanks so much again, Harlan. Really appreciate it.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you.